Free Association, as Biggish Worm titled that piece. Here's one of the universal Cree philosophers writing. I asked them to give their own definition of native. My working definition of native. In my eyes, being native is awesome because my parents taught me the language and some cultural stuff before they passed on. I miss them lots because I barely hear our language anymore. And another universal Cree philosopher, their stream of consciousness. In my opinion, this thing doesn't really make sense. The paragraphs are everywhere on different topics. I think it needs more detail in the paragraphs, especially about racism. I should mention, Biggish Worm, that I invite them to write uncensored, unedited, and unplugged. So, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. My working definition of racism is based on the belief that one's own race is superior and believe that their race is higher in power. My working definition of authentic, I asked them to do that as well. Really genuine, not being false. My working definition of spirit, it is something we need to keep us on our toes. And what did they name this? My unfinished story. Why? It's no matter how many times I've read it through, the meaning to me is a bit tough to understand. Hence, my unfinished song. And here's another universal Cree philosopher. Same text. One word, misunderstanding. One sentence, the sense that the person writing this holds on to the past. One paragraph. They assume that they know what the other person is thinking, but not everybody thinks this way. So it is not white persons in general, but maybe past experience with certain people. There is segregation, not only by the other people, but also this person creates it too. Streams of consciousness. Natives can be racist too, but maybe it is taught. Or maybe they learned from other cultures or other nationalities. When this says natives, I did not once think of prostitutes. I don't know any prostitutes. So maybe that line should change to something else, more common, like reservation or dark skin or strong bone structure. These are common thoughts that I deal with, and because I don't have these, people assume I'm not native, or that I'm Filipino, or East Indian, or South Asian. My working definition of authentic. One of a kind, unique, true to oneself, real, true, pure, individual, being myself and allowing others to be themselves. Priceless, rare, valuable. My working definition of spirit, subconscious or conscious, a part of the universe and more than just a physical presence. Spirit, ghost, what's in you? Deep self-love. I name this sure ? It leaves a question mark, like, are they sure or are they unsure? Is it sarcastic? It makes sure sound so unsure to me. Like, I guess.
Oh, those are great responses. I love it. That is just great. Yeah, sarcasm, fully intended. I was having a sarcastic moment because sometimes you think about the ridiculous things people say, and I love that someone said, but it sounds like you hold on to the past. Well, yeah, that's what that poem is about. It's about all those little ticks that you keep in your mind, right? About dumbass things that people say, right? Things, and it's just, I was just writing them down going, let's free associate. And I love that it didn't make sense, because it doesn't, right? And that's what free association is. Your mind just kind of goes to here, to there, to something. And I was trying to create that feeling of just random connections between things to reflect the experience I have often had. And each of those paragraphs, each of those little verses, that's something that it specifically happened, right? The first one, racism, and you say black and white. It was based on a couple of things. One being in high school, in a community, high school of like 100 people. And there's a reserve community and a Métis community right beside there too. But by the time I'm in high school, all the brown folks are gone. You know, in those days we didn't make it past junior high. My sister was the first Aboriginal person to graduate from our high school, right? And I was, I think, second, because my brother didn't make it. And so one of the little gals that I wanted to be friends with, because she was semi-cool, says to me one day, I wish we had a black principal, because then we could show everyone that we're not prejudiced. That's like, so I just kind of walked away. I'm like, what? And that little moment of cognitive dissonance just has carried me a long way. I'm like, wow, on so many levels, huh? And then years later, I did, as an adult, a panel on racism for Access TV. And I was pregnant at the time. And so, okay, I've got to tell you this, just because I see this little person, I'm like, okay, so this happened, I'm like 6 or 7 months pregnant. I'm thinking I'm really sharp and on top of it. And I get up in the morning, I'm like, today I have nothing to do. Home alone, I've got no work to do. I'm just going to relax. I'm just going to sit down here and write. And the phone rings, and it's my colleague who got me the gig going, are you okay? Oh, yeah, fine. We're all worried you've been in an accident or something. Okay, why? Yeah. And then she realizes, and I realized at the same time, I was supposed to be across town half an hour ago at this television studio. Pregnant brain. She's like, okay, I got it. Because she's a grandma, she's like, yeah, okay. I'll explain, don't you worry, get in the cab. So I argued with the cab driver on the way there, because I got rattled in my pregnant brain. I was like, you're going the wrong way. I'm going west. You're going the wrong way. He's looking at me like, lady, relax. And of course he was going the right way. But I get there, and I'm aware that I'm a little bit tetchy, and I'm trying to calm myself down. And it didn't help that the first thing that someone was reading is a great poem by Youth on racism was about black people and white people. I'm like, this is Canada. This is Edmonton. The people can't walk down the street without getting harassed here. That's the racism we should be talking about here. Why is this person, and they're overtly placing their poem in Chicago, right? They're running this great rant against racism in Chicago, blacks and whites. I'm like, come home. Come home, hello. Let's not give the award to this one. It might be a nice poem, but come on, bring it home. And most of the people around the table were looking at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay, I know this isn't the pregnant brain. This is the teachable moment. So that's the first one. And the other ones just follow from there. Like just so many people who have made those kind of free associations. Each of those words I've had people actually go, oh, you're Native? Isn't it a pity about the prostitutes? Literally, the next sentence, and I'm looking at them again going, eh? What? You know, because that's the image they had, right? The only ones that they knew were Native were prostitutes. I'm like, oh, okay, that's sure, whatever. And yeah, the sure at the end is sure, whatever. I do believe in God, because at least I'm spared those people who are after the, who are the like the eagle feather chasers or whatever. Like they kind of come after the people. And, oh, you look so authentic. Let me pet your hair. Those kind of people, right? And I've sort of sidled away from them while they were petting the guy beside me. I was like, okay, I'll just walk away now. See you later, Travis. Good luck. So anyway, it's a very sarcastic poem, and I'm glad to have learned from it about, I gotta let those things go now, really, whatever.
Well, here's another universal Cree philosopher on the same text. One word, racism. One sentence, not good enough on the inside. One paragraph, two men. One's a white man. The writer is a Métis who looks like a white man and is talking with the white man. Stream of consciousness. I imagine a Métis man having a conversation with a white man, non-native. The Métis man knows that the white man thinks he is white too. So the white man speaks to the Métis man as if he is white. And the conversation is going on as if there were no natives in the room. The Métis man agrees with the white man because he wants him to keep thinking what he thinks he is. So the Métis won't be bothered the way the white man may bother a native. I think the white man might be a cop looking for a native medicine man to put in jail. My working definition of racism, not having respect for other races but your own. My working definition of native, someone whose race originates from a place. I am native to Turtle Island. My working definition of authentic, original, first of its kind. My working definition of spirit. A spirit is the part of a being that can't be seen. It is the part that makes us all different in every way, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We use our spirits to communicate to a higher power.
We sure do. That's beautiful. I really love that. I love that I'm a Métis man. Once upon a time, okay, I'll tell another, this is a really bad story. Yeah, I'll tell it anyway. This is not really where I was going to go with this story, but one time, because a girlfriend and I were watching Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. You guys seen that movie? And we're like, okay, so there's that one, there's that Tu Wong Fu. How come they got like RuPaul? There's all these drag queens. How come there's not like drag kings? What's up with that? How come men get all the fun? And we were going to a tea party with some girls that we knew, and we thought, let's do it. So we made ourselves some fake equipment out of old pantyhose, stuffed with socks. And we put it in our pants, and we were practice walking like men. And we're cracking ourselves up going, will they realize what we're doing? And we're just doing it for a joke because we just watched this movie. Well, we ended up offending some friends of ours who weren't there, who happened to be lesbians, who happened to know about there actually is a history of drag kings. No one at that party knew anything about it. We're all just a bunch of straight gals hanging out, talking about guys, and me and Cheryl were like, yeah. And we're just cracking up, trying to see if they're gonna notice what's different. But then we finally told them what we were doing because we were cracking ourselves up too much, and they're like, oh, that's just sick, eh? And they told our friends, and our friends got mad at me. They're like, well, how come you did that? You don't know this, and I didn't. I said, well, teach me. There is actually, there is a history of women going in disguise as men, and during the 40s in the States, there's all these drag kings. So I guess it is where I meant to go with this, because it makes me think we all have these assumptions we make about people. We think we know. And we don't know. We can give offense in so many ways, and it comes back to that, well, how much can you be responsible for that? We didn't mean any disrespect to any history. We were just being silly, But then how many people wear a Pocahontas costume for Halloween? They go, I'm just being silly. I don't mean any disrespect. And it's a balancing act. How do you know what's the right thing to do? My late sister went to South Africa. She had a great time there because they love natives. They took them out to dinner at this native-themed restaurant. She brought home a leather placemat with a chief's head on it. And they're so down with native Canadians, like, wow. So if we come to Canada, can you introduce us to a shaman, can you? And they're like, how do you like South Africa? We're sorry about, all the blacks, they're kind of, it's too bad about the blacks. This is the white people are talking to them like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you come on over anytime, right? That's okay, thanks. And it's not about, so much is about context, So much is about context. I'm gonna, I talked to my Korean friend who's like, yeah, anyone but those black men, those bastards, they're all misogynists. I'm like, oh, okay. Wait wait a minute. We all got our assumptions. And me going around, like, I got into trouble at the university one time, a long time ago. It's back to South Africa. The South African ambassador was coming over to our university. The Grad Students Association at that time said, we're not going to let him speak because it's an apartheid regime. And all the black students were going, yeah, this is important, and they're trying to rally me. They don't know me, they just come up to me in the hall, rally to our cause. And I'm like, I don't know, I'll go see what's happening. So I went to see what's happening, and what I saw was a whole bunch of black students lined up to speak. A whole bunch of an audience, mostly white people, and this little white girl in a green coat running up and down the line, telling them who was going to speak in what order. And I went, this is weird. And everyone's all full of this, we're going to fix South Africa. And I just can't resist. And I got in the line, I got up there. Hello, I'm a racist. Well, I thought they were going to hang me. Honestly, I just thought to see what happens. And boy, they just like boiled up like bees. They were really mad because they thought I was white. And they're shouting, boo, yes, get off the stage, boo, we're going to get you. I'm like, but wait for it. I'm racist because, look at me. But when I look at white people, because I'm of Aboriginal heritage, sometimes I don't like them just because they're white. Sometimes I assume they're the enemy. I'm walking around this university all the time with my scouting eyes on when I see a white person. And you don't know that just looking at me because you can't tell. It was hard for them to hear that because they were still busy trying to go, ah! It worked out in the long run, but for a moment there I thought, you've got to pick your moment. You really got to pick your moment. I felt happy I had a couple of tall guys in the back who knew me. I'm like, okay, cover this because I might need help getting out alive.
You lead an amazing life, biggish worm.
It's silly. No, just the rest of that story. So a couple of weeks later, my sister and her fiance are over, right? And we're having coffee, and there's a knock at the door. And her fiance, he's a Métis guy too, and he looks up and he goes, oh, they're coming! And there's a black face at the door. It's our mailman with a package, right? I'm like, shut up, it's Charles, he's the mailman.
Well, here's the same text, but another universal Cree philosopher. One word, stereotype. One sentence. Now, who is authentic or inauthentic? One paragraph. This is not a dialogue. When expectations cloud vision of true reality, then there can be no honesty of dialogue. Stream of consciousness. This is all too often the dialogue mainstream and media views of Indigenous people. Not fancy enough, not wearing beads and feathers, must not be authentic Indians, right? This, or at the mention of the word native, they instantly have a preconceived idea of poverty, of violence, of roadblocks. When others filter their view of us through stereotypes or preconceived ideas, sometimes and mostly false, they fail to see us as equal, let alone human. There can be no dialogue. Why should we surrender our most truthly truths? Our sacred of sacreds? Quote, sure, I believe in God, is sometimes the answer, but more often we share freely who we really are and hope one day you will stop filtering. My working definition of racism is a taught behavior perpetuated by adults upon children. It is taught by media and imposed by the government. It means to hate or hold in ill regard a person or group of people of an ethnicity other than one's own. People don't want to be racist, they are taught to be. It is an ugly beast that can only be killed with kindness. My working definition of native is, native means indigenous, occurring naturally in an environment. It means to be part of an ecosystem and is characterized by language, custom, and philosophy. Insert my picture here. They know who they are, so it's up to them. My working definition of authentic, having characteristics true to the self, group, or community of origin. Speaking, acting out of truth, not fake. My definition of spirit is a spirit. Everything has a spirit. Animals, plants, rocks, rivers, volcanoes, tornadoes. Spirit is the force and essence of things. Spirit is immortal and eternal. Spirit is not bound to any one plane of existence. Insert my photo here. I name this authenticity and stereotypes in interracial dialogue.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to that. I got nothing. No, let's keep going. Who's got something?
Please, folks. Raise your hand. Thank you.
Oh, well, that was mine. I hope you recognize from the picture that that was me. But yeah, I don't know. Thank you for just saying yes. Like, I mean, if there's no, there's no rebuttal or there's no anything, and if you're saying yes, that means I got your poem, right? So it's good. And I guess that it was written in a way that I could understand it. So thank you. And it's nice to have poetry that reflects who you are and can kind of you can hold up this mirror and go, hey man, there's some smart person thinks the way I think, so that must make me smart, right? Oh, thanks.
Cool, now I feel real smart. but that's it, isn't it? I mean, and that's why we write too. That's why to be a writer is to put something out there and go, okay, I'm hunting for other people, and they're gonna agree with me, and that'll make me feel like, they're real smart, I must be smart. And if they disagree with me, then they're gonna teach me something. They're gonna teach me something that I didn't know, and it'll be something I'm ready to learn. And that's what I hope anyway. And that always comes back to any work, right? You're putting something out there in the world, and you hope it's useful to people. You hope they're gonna like your concept and buy into it, whatever it is, and say, yeah, that's something that really is useful. I was waiting all my life for a Bannock-shaped fridge magnet, all right, or whatever the product is. Hey, there's a good idea. Or you hope you're producing something useful. I got this great movie idea. I was just waiting for a couple people to come back. This is my great movie idea. Tarzan's Godzilla. Okay, can you picture it? You see the whole story? He rises up out of the tar sands and he comes stomping down Highway 63 and he's taking out facilities, eating whole busloads of workers on the way. He's got a pickup kind of stuck from one, on his little spikes and everything. Tarzan's Godzilla, right? I'm gonna write the movie.
Other questions, comments, observations? We are moving towards the end of this kind of collective conversation, so I encourage you to make the most.
When I was trying to envision who the writer was, I honest to God did not envision you. When I seen you walk in, I thought you were white too. Not gonna lie, I did. And when I envisioned the writer, I envisioned a native, looking like a native woman who had like I just didn't envision you. And to have you come here, and that's why I probably didn't understand your point of view, because I didn't look at it from your interpretation or your perspective. I was looking at it more from mine, I guess. Maybe that's why I didn't understand it.
I think you did understand part of it. I think that's great to look at it from your perspective. What else perspective do you have, right? You have to bring your own view to what you're doing. That's cool. That's great.
But it also makes me understand my little brother more now, because my little brother is native. He acts native and everything, but he's white. He has orange hair, freckles, white skin. He looks more Caucasian than some of my teachers who are all like pure white. My little brother looks like he's this white. So maybe I could understand what he's coming from now, because I told him to before in school that he had like best of both worlds. He could fit into like the white society, and he also could try and fit into the native society too, with his spiritual beliefs and everything. Yeah.
Do you want to respond, Biggest one?
I totally get that. I'm actually working on a book right now. I'm working on a book of poetry, but I'm also working on a book of memoirs, and I'm calling it Walking Beige. And it's about being a stealth Indian, being a Métis person, being a status Indian who's also half Polish. And if you count by the Anishinaabe way, I'm Polish because we're matrilineal. And just the fun things you discover when you move in one world or another, and you get people say the darndest things and do the darndest things, and I'm those people sometimes too. I go, what? Check that. What did I just say? What did I just do? What assumption did I just make there? And what a gift it is to have that. But I didn't always think it was a gift. You know, sometimes you just don't think it's such a gift. And I remember I went to BC to a place called Inaukin, which is a native arts center. And I went there thinking, I'm coming home. I'll be working with Aboriginal artists. They'll get me. I'll fit in. The first week I was there, they're holding a sweat lodge. And one of the administrators sees fit to say, and I just want to tell everyone there'll be no white people at this. And I went, hands up, I'm not coming either, because if you're going to say you're having a prayer where my mom and my grandma wouldn't be welcome, not coming. Because that's just, I didn't come here for that, thank you. And I spent 2 years, to my surprise, going, I'm half Polish, go ahead, knock it off. Knock the chip right off there, I've got that one too. And then, ooh, oh, this one's yours. Oh, this was mine. Ah, they're from everywhere. This is amazing. What do we got here?
They're going into business as making smoothies.
No, I have to ask because I'm allergic to milk. It's lactate. That doesn't work on me. I like any dairy at all because it's the protein too, like the casein. It'll. I would love to drink this, but it will do bad things to me. Okay, thank you. But thank you. It looks amazing. It smells great. Wow. I'm sorry I can't eat it. Drink it. Enjoy it. Anyway, I spent 2 years doing that and feeling like I don't know why I've got to represent for the white people, but I guess I got to. Okay, that's my job. I'll do it. And I was never so proud of myself. I was all huffity puffity up. One day in a class, a bunch of us sat there, and the rest of the class, who all looked more native than me, all started outing their white sides. Like they kind of rolled out the white guy in their closet, right? Oh, actually, my grandfather's Swedish. Oh, actually, I'm this and that and yeah. And I'm sitting there going, my work here is done. All right. I've helped them. I've helped the people. And my little sister, who's blonde, right? She's blonde. She comes to visit me, and she happened to be there that day. I come home like, my work here's done. This is what happened today after 2 years. And she's like, man, those people are way braver than you. What you got? Come on. It's easy for you to acknowledge your whiteness. Look at you. Look at me. We can't pretend we're not. They could pretend that they're not. So therefore, they're braver to admit it. Come on, we could have pretended we were white all this time and not said we were native. And so the white, I'm like, oh yeah, that idea, right, this doesn't quite compare to having to go around and say, no, I am native, thank you very much. And she just kind of laughed at me, she's like, oh, quit being so bepuffed.
Questions, comments? Buffalo Thunder. We see you here, you laugh, but why don't you make the most of the moment? Because we're running out of time. Okay, TML? I'm sorry, I got so much stuff on my lap here.
How many books did you write?
Oh, how many books did I write? Does that mean that are published or just in my head? There's Tarzan's Godzilla. There's a whole movie and a book. There's a whole franchise behind it. I just have the one book of poetry. A number of years ago, I wrote a book about food. about where food comes from, about the food industry. I wrote it on a commission from the Federation of Labor, and so it was more of an instructional book talking about that. So that's the other book I've written, and been in about 1 billion anthologies as a contributor and sometimes as an editor. And that's my storied past as not a very many books person yet. Wait, were we going to you?
Harry wants to know if you can have soy.
Yes, I can have soy. Oh, that's so nice. Sorry to be such a high maintenance.
One of the things I wanted to look at was where your moose comes from, you know, at the moment. Because sometimes it can go from 1990 till this morning, and it can change or make itself clear to you as it develops. And I wanted to know if you had written anything with the impact of Oka, Elijah Harper, that kind of stuff.
Boy, that's something, you know, when I think about the Oka thing, I've not written about that except one piece. I wrote one piece about going down to Montreal a few years after Oka and going out to Ganastage and sitting with people there, and then going out to Kahnawake one night and we did a little show there. And it was just a lot of fun because we were traveling in a group, but I remember really clearly two things about it. I remember coming through the Whiskey Gulch, they called it, and there had been, you know, right? You know, they killed an old
If you've
man.
never seen Alanis Albam's Sewell's film, Rocks at Whiskey Gulch, you won't believe it. And it's all true. It all happened. It's documented by Alanis Albam, Rocks at Whiskey Gulch. And it impacted me so hard, I actually contacted the people in the film, and I brought all of them in the film and Alanis Albam. You gotta see this film.
Yeah, it's really something. And Whiskey Gulch, rocks and guns at Whiskey Gulch, and yeah.
Gulch, Gulch.
And it's just this little road you got to go through to get there, and we drove through there. And just the feeling of being in a bus with a bunch of Native people going through there and going under the underpass and going, oh, there's still a lot of feeling here about what could happen. It just because some people attacked them from above and killed an old guy, and it's a terrible thing. But that and also just the feeling in the longhouse there, by contrast, the feeling in the longhouse there of just old ability to take it in and keep going. Just there's a lot of rootedness there because they've had to be. And so I wrote a little piece about that, one little piece, and it's called Coming to Kahnawake, and it's in Fifth World Drum. That's the only thing I've written about Oka, really. Yeah. And other than that, what was the other one? Oka and Elijah Harper. I don't know what to say about that, really. I think a lot of other people have written about what he did and how important that is, and so I haven't written about that.
Yeah, now's the time. Carpe diem, seize the day.
As a performing artist, what is your insight into cultural appropriation and intellectual property?
Oh boy, you saved the best for
Okay,
last.
that's a great question. Boy, oh boy, that's a tricky question, isn't it? When you're dealing with material culture, when you're dealing with material products, right? It's so much clearer and simpler, at least if you don't go into a really deep spiritual level about it, and then it all gets complicated and simple. You know, what belongs where. But when you talk about cultural appropriation, I think that is sometimes a useful thing to talk about as a performer. But I'm always keeping in mind that I'm speaking in English, right? I'm speaking in English and we're all understanding this trade language of English, even though we all represent a whole bunch of different cultural backgrounds, even in this room. And I think about how cultures grow and change. On one level, the talk about cultural appropriation is necessary because it's talking about there's a problem with just going and ripping people's stuff off. Patenting it for yourself. There's where the trouble is. You patent it for yourself and say, I own that now. And it don't matter who I got it from, right? It's the same level as what happens with food. When you patent food, and they're trying to do that, to patent seeds so farmers cannot grow seeds. That's where it matters. That's the level in which it matters. Intellectually, it's different. You can't stop me from thinking. I can't stop you from thinking. I can't stop you from discovering new ideas and letting them change your mind. And I'd be a fool to try and to shut myself off to influences. For me, that wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be real. And I find it really interesting to look at that whole issue. And sometimes I think it becomes a catchphrase for people just wanting to be racists. You know? It's like it comes from a really good place to say, now hold on a minute, if you're taking a community's stuff and then putting a copyright on it for yourself.
Commodifying?
Well, not just the commodifying, but taking it for yourself so that they can't use it. That's a problem. But if you're taking it and paying honor to it and making it part of what your practice is, then you're being an actual human being. Because that is what we do. We travel and we change, and you know, we're here speaking to each other. I remember a lot of this came up in Montreal when I was there the same time. That was a really profound trip. It was 2001. But we had a huge big round table about it. Native artists from across Canada, a couple guys from New Zealand. We were all just like, rah, 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 rah. And a woman from Dialogic Theatre, which is the oldest native theatre company in North America. And this woman, she's a great woman. She stands up and she says, now look at here. Gloria de Bossagy, she says, she gets up and she goes, I do theatre. I'm not going to shit on the people who taught me. And you know what? The people who taught me were white. What kind of a person am I who I'll go in their schools and I'll learn their stuff. I'll learn their technology and their staging, and then I'm going to turn around and shit on them. So when you cross that line where you say we're only native, you're doing the Nazis' work for them. She said this to these people, she said, just shut up with that talk. You've gone too far when you start trying to categorize people into little corrals and say, only these people can say this. Because then you're just doing their work for them, and the they in this question are not people you want to be like. We don't get anything but by trade in terms of creativity. And I suppose it's true in business too. You're going to trade with people, right? You're going to do trade with people. Your ideas are going to change, their ideas are going to change. The tricky thing is where money's on the line. Thank you. Oh, just a second.
Thank you, Evan.
Oh man, that's good. Thank you. Oh my gosh. It's tricky when it becomes money. And I think about like cultural appropriation where it has to do with, the best explanation I heard of it was someone talking about, well look, if some mainstream artist who's got a lot of money comes into a community and they make a bunch of money off of this style of music, and then the people who practice that music don't have access because everyone thinks they've heard it. That's one kind of cultural appropriation. And that's not as problematic. It's tricky because it's difficult because you don't have a level playing field. He's talking about Paul Simon and his Rhythm of the Saints album in particular, right? Going down to Brazil working. But he's working with top Brazilian musicians and within their own field and with their own community and country. And there's millions more people in Brazil than here. So they've got a market. They're doing okay, those guys he's working with. And you can make the case he's bringing that music to people who haven't heard it before. And it's not his fault if the audience is so shallow, they're like, well, I know I don't have to buy Brazilian indigenous music. That's not his fault, you know? But if he's doing like they did with that Lion Sleeps Tonight, right? Where that's an old song. That's one guy's particular song. But some guy swooped in back in, what, the 50s? Took that song, copyrighted it, made millions off of it, and now the people there can't sing it? What? And the guy who wrote it doesn't get any royalties and his family's living in poverty? That's when cultural appropriation is bullshit and wrong. And intellectual property has to try and protect people creating stuff. I think the internet makes it problematic too, because everybody wants to put stuff out there, right? Everybody wants to put their stuff out there, and people will take stuff without attribution all the time. I sometimes wonder how we can ever keep a rein on it, and whether the people who do free source stuff are maybe not, you know, more ahead of the curve and going, look, this is my work, use it. It's still going to be my work. You can only do that if you're eating every day. You got a place to live, right?
You remember the word penultimate?
Yeah.
What does it mean? Next to last. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Universal Cree Philosophers, here's the second to last reading that we'll do. We're going to be bringing this seminar and the Universal Cree Philosophers full circle. The second to last reading, and then we'll do one more, and then we're going to do something unlike anything we've ever done to conclude. So, again, in dialogue with your text, Biggish Worm, here's what one of the Universal Cree Philosophers wrote. One word, controversial. One sentence, maybe it's a half-breed or a white man talking. One paragraph, it sounds like someone is mocking traditional Niha ways. It could be a priest, an outsider, who is not spiritual at all. Stream of consciousness, white man. In control, inconspicuous, incognito, mystery, trickster, anarchist, mockery. No one will hunt for this guy. He will melt into the shadows. Injustice. My working definition of racism, using fear, intimidation to control another race, undermining one's ability to be their own person, belittling one's self-esteem and self-worth as it pertains to their race. My working definition of native, poverty-stricken, third-class citizen, hocus pocus, bingo, child abuse, firewater, dropout, domestic violence. My working definition of authentic, someone at peace with their faults, flaws, mistakes, someone able to own their past and not to hold blame, someone in touch with their soul. My working definition of spirit, something that is alive and moving, something warm and vibrant, something you possess when you are whole. And their name for this text, I name this faceless hunter. Racism can come in all forms. It can be silent, subtle, direct, overt. It is like a faceless hunter when it attacks. You won't always see it coming, but you will feel the pierce to your heart when your sense of self-worth is shattered.
Holy crap, that's great writing. If I didn't already have a name, I'd want to be Faceless Hunter. That's so cool. Who wrote that? That's so good. Well, I can see why you want to write a book. So we got a whole room full of writers and entrepreneurs. That's very, very cool.
I invite you to riff on it.
Faceless Hunter. Well, it is exactly that. We each have to find our own soul and figure out who we are before we can really proceed with anything. And yet we have to proceed regardless. You're born going, and you have to keep going until you stop going, and you don't know it while you're doing it. And yeah, so you can't let it stop you from trying out things, and you're going to succeed, and you're going to fail, and you're going to make all kinds of things. And right now, this book, Walking Beige, that I'm working on, it comes in part because Nelson Mandela died. And there was the timing of it. I'm thinking about it for years, right? Who hasn't, right? You're always thinking about these things. And then he died, and there was all that lead up to it, because they knew he was passing, and there's all his top 10 quotes and all of this stuff. And I thought about the South African ambassador story. I thought, I gotta write about that sometime, because that was ridiculous. And then I read a little bit of his second autobiography. I'd read his first one, and in his second one, in the preface to his second autobiography, Conversations with Myself, they explain that, in fact, his first autobiography was not just written by him himself, but it was co-written. He had like a team of people, right? Because he didn't go into jail just some little guy. He was a son of a chief, right? He's raised to chiefdom from a kid. So he was raised to that role. And he had a team with him when he was in prison the whole time who were putting out press releases for him, who were putting out statements. And he was a lawyer too, so he knew how to craft stuff, and he had a team of people working on him, crafting, remembering stuff for him, writing stuff down for him. So that first big autobiography is a collaborative work by his community in a way. And I thought, got it, okay. That's all right then. And then the second one, I happened to read about, he went to an Inuit community, and this is after he got out of prison. He's like, I was so surprised. He was very open about how surprised he was that these guys weren't riding around on kayaks, stabbing polar bears. Because he didn't have any idea. And I thought, okay, here's the icon of racial equality in the modern world. Here's the great hero held up for the world. And he didn't know about our people. Maybe there's some writing we need to do out in the world. Maybe I better get going. If Nelson Mandela didn't know a squat about Native people, and even though you think he would, right, with the whole reserve system, homelands thing there, all the history that we share with South Africa and apartheid, you'd think he'd know, but no, you can't know everything. One person can't know everything. So it just made me really reaffirm for me the fact that as writers we have things to do. Which reminded me of your question before about where's my moose right now. My moose is sitting right there going, oh yeah, you're right. Write the stuff that you got to write about. And don't forget that there's billions of us with these different stories. 1 in 5 people in the world is Indigenous. I don't mean Indigenous North American, but 1 in 5 people is statistically, apparently, from a tribal people whose homelands don't show up on the map of the world as nations. And that's usually because of colonial mapping of things, right? Classic example, Iran, Iraq, Turkey. Those 3 places border each other, and they were divided up by the imperial powers of the day. And it was done such that Kurdistan is in all of those countries. So guess what? You have a disgruntled minority in every one of those countries, the Kurds, who are the indigenous people of that area, who are not recognized, and who can be sort of counted on to not be happy with whatever regime is in power, and you just think, that's so darn tricky, isn't it? But 1 in 5, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of indigenous people.
Folks, you remember that word penultimate? Who would like to ask the second to last question?
Okay, so just listening to all of your stories and kind of going through your book, So what I would like to know, and I'm going to ask, and it's kind of off topic right now, but it's going to bug me later when I'm actually going through your poems. So what is your favorite poem in the book that you wrote? Can you share it with us and why?
Exactly. I'm like, oh, this is my favorite finger. Here's my favorite toe. No, it's really not that precious to me. That's a really good question. My favorite is this. Welalin chimigwech, hi hi, lim limt. 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 There's still a soft chain of belonging woven all across the land. That's a poem called Thank You, and it's my favorite because it's where it all starts and where it all ends, right? And I always come back to that and go, oh yeah, right. As long as you know how to say thank you in any language, you'll figure out the rest of it, right? But that's the one. That, and excuse me, I didn't know. but you know. But if I had to pick a favorite, that would be it. Well, thank you. Yeah, so it starts in Mi'kmaq, which is my grandfather's heritage and the territory I was born into, and by treaty law, it's what I identify as belonging to Listuguj Mi'kmaq First Nation. But I certainly didn't grow up there, and I got relatives there who are third, fourth, fifth cousins. Chimegwech, of course, is from my dad's. Most of my dad's family is Ojibwe, and I can speak a little bit, just because I stole a Pimsleur recording. You know, Pimsleur language. It's a language learning system, and a friend got it out of the library for me, and I pirated a recording to learn Ojibwe because I don't have any elders around to teach me. I'm like, this is the modern age. I'll learn from Pimsleur. I'm down with that. And of course, you know, Hi Hi and Lim Limt is from the Okanagan people because I spent 2 years out there, and their honor song is just so cool, and they say, the land is beautiful, or sorry, the people are beautiful because the land is beautiful. That's the main line in their honor song, and I'm like, oh, that's it. Elikos we noden, elikos ukanakin. That's the main line of it, right? Because the land is beautiful, the people are beautiful. Oh, that's a good song because it's true everywhere. So I wanted to honor those four places because I live in, you know, Cree territory. That's the high bit, and yeah, I want to change what we say as a public prayer in the places in Canada where we have a public prayer. You know, because they're getting rid of doing the Our Father, right? Because they're recognizing, gee, maybe that just doesn't fit with everybody. And so I counted up the words. There's like 55 words in that prayer. And I thought, like, you could say thank you or all my relations, either of those two things, in about 15, 16, 17 languages and not come up to 55 words. And if you did that if we formalized that as the way we prayed it as a nation, then we would be doing some real acknowledging of what our real history is. You know, start with the First Nations languages, add in the Second Nations languages, and then all the people who came. Yeah, all the diversities, you know, from the different waves of immigration since then. And why not just, and what word better than either that phrase, all my relations, or if that makes people too nervous because they think we're all going native, you know, people still worry about that, right? I don't know, we're all going to move into wigwams or something. But thank you. Who doesn't say thank you? Everybody has a word for it, so maybe that could be, it's my dream. And maybe one day.
Well, now it's the ultimate. This is the last time that Biggish Worm will read, and we'll invite her to read this.
It's the last time I'll read today. I just got to say that. just for today, or just for, in this session, really. I'll probably go home and read too. I'll read my Twitter because I'm trying to become a cult. Do you guys like Twitter? I love Twitter. Yeah, you got followers. I'm like, I've got followers? I'm like a cult. I got. It's such a funny thing. And I think, oh, that's very clever of them. There's some clever marketing, right? Because now everybody wants to have followers. Oh, man. Okay. I'll definitely read that, my Twitter tonight and tweet about this. I'm like a bird. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Wood with rabbit. Here silver leaves tip for rain. Married at the scar, two salve trees lean against each other. How we all learn to walk. Well-tuned rocks smoothing feet. My feet. I find I watch them, trusting my head to the sky. Wind carries over before we see it. Small boy rabbit, frozen in prayer beneath Indian paintbrushes. What a name. Never have seen brown artists paint with them. Still, tiger lilies don't have tigers. Then again, is that where we went? When those who came stopped respecting our mother, tigers and Indians, gone into flower colors. Old people, young people, mauve and rose, flaming wildflowers bending over a rabbit at prayer, at need to become only his tail, the light floss of dandelions, uncatchable.
Thank you, Biggish Worm. We'll only read one by a universal Cree philosopher. One word, Indian. One sentence, a woman walking in the woods and what she sees. One paragraph, I think about flowers and people. Peter Pan with no mother. Have people been reduced to flowers and myths? If I was a flower, I wonder what I would be. I like to watch the dandelion seeds blow in the breeze. Now I have to write this. Maybe dandelion was once a person. Stream of consciousness. I think about discovering how things are and how we see them and how they were. I liked how he or she described the silver-tipped leaf toward rain. When leaves flip over, we know the rain is coming, and they are silver underneath. I like the imagery of two trees leaning toward each other. That was soothing. I was in the forest. I could feel the wind and see the tiger lilies, the clouds, the Indian artists, the bunnies, and I thought about the deeper meaning that went everywhere. I thought about the beauty in imagery and the beauty in words. And I thought about how we see the world is different and complex, almost like a fingerprint. We all see things different, yet each is truth. I name this, My Eyes Tell the Truth, even though I might see contradictions. And I asked for their working definition of prayer. Here it is. Prayer is a conversation between me and the Creator. A dialogue, a plea, a request, thanks, and sometimes just talking. Prayer can come in many forms. Like when I light sweetgrass, sage, fungus, or cedar. They pray too, and lift their prayers to the Creator. The Creator hears our prayers. Even though sometimes I can't feel it. Prayer is sacred. You are sacred. The blending and sharing of sacred. I don't really know much about how prayer works. I only know it does.
Well, that's beautiful. Again, that's really, really beautiful. How fun to read that piece. It's one that I don't, I can probably count on one finger the times I've read that piece in public. And yet, you know, when I hear somebody reacting to it, I think, oh, I could read that more often. It's a nice piece of poetry. But it's quiet, you know, and I think maybe that's why I don't, because it's more for just that kind of, just you look at it yourself and you think about, oh yeah, the times when we do those things, we just go and notice stuff. And I think that's where peace and kind of the strength to go ahead and do the outward stuff comes from, is where you take the time for the inward stuff too, you know, and we all got to do that. And I also think about, well, two things. I had this friend who was schizophrenic, and that poem's a little bit for her, because she was the best. I wrote a poem specifically for her too, but this is for her as well. I knew her as a kid. She was the best storyteller I ever knew. Man, she was incredible. You would not believe the world she could create just like that. But she could do that because of the things that were going on in her own life were so hard to deal with that she really had to exercise her imagination. And she could create whole worlds out of just looking at a dandelion. She'd tell you these whole stories about, it all started with the dandelion and the people who could fly on the end of the dandelion and their king. And she told me stories for weeks about this land and the king and his people. And later, when I met her as an adult and realized that she had become diagnosed as schizophrenic and was spending her adult life dealing with that as a reality, I thought, there it is, there's a gift. I hope she comes back to her gift, because that's what's most important about her. And I felt like I wanted to go and talk to her about that. Do you remember the king? Tell me about the king again. But when I met her again, I was too shy to do that. I was too scared that she wouldn't remember, or that it would make her angry, or that she would cry and I wouldn't be able to deal with it. Now I think I'm old enough that if I saw her again, I'd be able to do that. And I'm just thankful for that today, for getting the chance to revisit that poem and put that in my mind, that I think I would do that. You know, if that's given, if that comes along the path, I'd like to thank her in person for that gift, because boy, it meant a lot to me to have a friend in those days. You know, we were kind of the only color around in our school, so it was great. I loved that king too in his land. It was a better place.
Ultimate means last. Who would like to ask the last question of Biggest Worm? Who would like to ask the last question?
Okay, so based on the question I asked you last time, Eric made a really good point. So what's the most creative poem in this book that you have? And can you read that one to us?
That's like getting an autograph.
This is my favorite toe. I don't know. I don't know what the most creative poem is. Oof, what's the most creative poem? I don't know. But I'll pick one that's good and creative. I don't know what's the most creative poem, but I think the one that stretches me a lot sometimes is the first poem. No, not the pre-word poem, but the first poem. Nope, not the first poem either. I don't know my own book. It's the second poem. And it's the Mi'kmaq fog song. To rain, to turn to rain, beck, rainbow in the bay, fog, uktan, the ocean. And this is where I'd say to you, it's the most creative one because I make people do stuff. So this half of the room has to do So it'll be 1, 2, 3, You guys are Oh, but you all got to be and that's the fog. And you guys are uktan, and that's the ocean. Uktan. So we go uktan, 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 uktan. In the fog in the ocean, there's a whole new world. Talma, of course. We make the world. We weave the world in a whisper. Give me a whistle. Telma. We make the world. Wuskamu. The world. Make another world. Uktan. Make another world. Uktan. Make another world. Elisnuet. We make another world. We whisper. Gimme we stuck. Elisnuet. El taktiskit. We weave, of course. And in the moments between, we weave a whole new world. Every breathing second between the drumbeat of the heart and the next beat of the heart, we make the world new. Yeah, thank you. That's so much fun to do with people because they get this really neat sound going on. And I like it stretches, this poem stretches me out because I don't speak Mi'kmaq. And I really literally thought, well, I had this experience just going down to the sea, and you understand where the language comes from when you hear people speaking that language by the sea. You go, oh, that makes so much sense. And so I had a dictionary that one of my cousins gave me a dictionary. I want to find the words and learn how to say those words. I have a terrible accent because I've asked some people, said, like, check my accent. And they're like, you got a terrible accent, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because you have to, and that's why I like the poem, because it's creative. You have to take the gamble of not being very good at it. You got to work in languages you're not comfortable with. Or at least as a writer, I feel like I got to go places I'm not comfortable going, and it works out better if you take people with you. You know, and it becomes a much more beautiful poem when people join in, and that's why I would, if I had to pick a most creative, I'd say that, because every time I do it, it gets created by a whole bunch of people.
We're going to bring our special session with Bigish Wern, aka Anna Marie Sewell, and with the Universal Cree philosophers and the seminar we've had to a conclusion through something that's about to happen. So could you please get your chairs as though you're going to watch something on the screen, please? What do you want?
will be the last time we ever share something in this seminar. Is Mighty Mouse here? This is also. And if you can get up close and personal, it's going to be short, and it'll be the conclusion to all that we do together. Are we missing somebody? Oh.
So just start from the beginning?
Yes, please.
All right.
Just.
The old woman remembered a swan she had bought many years ago in Shanghai for a foolish sum. This bird, boasted the market vendor, was once a duck that stretched its neck in hopes of becoming a goose. And now look, it is too beautiful to eat. Then the woman and the swan sailed across an ocean many thousands of li wide, stretching their necks toward America. On her journey, she cooed to the swan, "In America, I will have a daughter just like me. But over there, nobody will say her worth is measured by the loudness of her husband's belch. Over there, nobody will look down on her, because I will make her speak only perfect American English. And over there, she will always be too full to swallow any sorrow. She will know my meaning because I will give her this swan, a creature that became more than what was hoped for. But when she arrived in the new country, the immigration officials pulled the swan away from her, leaving the woman fluttering her arms and with only one swan feather for a memory. For a long time now, the woman had wanted to give her daughter the single swan feather and tell her, "This feather may look worthless, but it comes from afar and carries with it all my good intentions."
Stop. I wanted to find a way to thank each of you for the privilege you gave me of walking in your moccasins through your writings, those of Biggish Worm, Ms. Anna Marie Sewell, whom we have meditated all week long, and each of yours that I have the privilege of reading. So, this is for you, DZ14. This is for you, Biggish Worm. This is for you, Wonder Woman. Rock Woman. H-Town Presto. Mighty Mouse. Knockout. The name I can't pronounce. Princess Goddess. Buffalo Thunder. TML. Right. Genji. Amazon. Far Beyond. Winter Hawk. Thank you all.